Hey everybody, and welcome to rabb1t's Ramblings, podcast 428. I don't have a lot to say this time. I have still been having a super lot of fun with Everspace 2, but that pretty much is the same thing. As you level up, it just gets bigger and changes the levels. I have found a couple of new bad guy types recently, which is very cool, but not really worth talking about. Pretty much this time I have a little bit of rambling about Destiny 2's new content, which could shape the way their future is going to go. And that's all I have to talk about this time. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show. So I would say for this new Destiny 2 content that I have liked the campaign probably the most in quite a long time. Of course, it doesn't beat the last one, Final Shape, but that would be tough to do because they're closing out, the 10-year saga before that, so that one was pretty epic. This one, I think, was a pretty good start for what they are going to do for the future in terms of campaign setup. I don't like, though, that they pretty much made you repeat a lot of the quests right away to do sort of special unlocks for things that you do based on those quests. So that was kind of dumb that they just did this really cool campaign and then they're like, hey, you want this thing? You gotta grind them out and do them all over again, which did not make me happy. I didn't like being forced to do them again so quickly. I would describe the changes in armor and weapons in terms of the tier system as a solid base but a flawed execution. Compared to Elder Scrolls Online, which I have played an equal amount of time as the Destiny series, and pretty much every other MMO or ARPG out there, I think they're kind of not executing it correctly, I guess you could say. In pretty much all the other games, you go for tiered sets, and especially with like Elder Scrolls Online, you get a crafted set to start, and then you'll go and you'll farm up a dungeon set, which is better. And then you're like, okay, now I have this better set, but while you were going for that better set, you had this set that you were happy with. And then you repeat that. You go into harder content and you get the better set, and you go through different sets and different tiers, and each one pretty much gets better or more situational or specific to a particular build you are looking for. With Destiny 2, there are only a handful of sets. I think off the top of my head I'm tempted to say 6, of which I don't really care about any of them, and they aren't really any more powerful than any other set, so it doesn't really matter where you get them from. They're all sort of equal in power, and of the 5 tiers in their tiered system, you can pretty much use them at any tier. They just get more stats, which for Destiny 2 is not a really big deal. I mean, sure, the difference between tier 5 and tier 1 is going to be quite a lot of stat points, but overall, I'd say it probably doesn't add up to more than a few percentage points in total. And because there are 5 potential tier levels, pretty much everybody assumes that anything below tier 5 is garbage. So you're not really sort of happy with your set because you're not at the top tier set until, you get there, which the vast majority of people, I think, will probably not ever get there because it's just too much grinding. I have done a ridiculous amount of grinding, probably more than any other expansion up to this point, and I am only barely getting into tier 3. I do have a couple of tier 4 pieces, but they aren't the set or stats that I'm looking for. because not only do you have to get the set type you want, but you have to get it in the stat distribution that you want. Otherwise, your build gets messed up. It's not that you won't, function totally, but it won't be like, oh, this is my ideal build, which is another problem because you aren't getting anywhere near enough pieces to choose and make your own build. And as I said, with something like Elder Scrolls Online, you get, this sort of tier set, set up how you want, and then you're happy, and then you're looking for the next tier, but you're still happy with your current tier. You don't really get that with Destiny 2. And just to make an example of how rare the drops are that you want, I had a tier 1 set on my chest, which was both the set and stats that I wanted, and I basically never replaced that until I got a tier 4, which was a ridiculous amount of points better, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to change it to this other set because there's this new set for the special event happening, and I may as well because the other one is not dropping. And I had gone from light level 10, which is where you start, all the way up to, I think it was about 315 before I switched that, which is a ridiculous amount. Most casual people are nowhere near that much. They're probably about half that much level. I am not playing a lot, but I am playing between 2 and 4 hours probably every day, which most, casual people don't get to play that much. So I am quite a bit ahead of the average, and I'm close to actually some of the YouTubers, which is kind of surprising. But it is a ridiculous amount of grinding. I don't think most people will be interested in grinding as much as it is, because you're just doing the same thing pretty much over and over and over and over and over and over. And now, as I mentioned, there's a special solstice event going on right now, which gives you special drops. Each of the 4 categories that you can pick from, which one is a solo category, one is a group category, one is a pinnacle category, which is not match made, but you can do it solo if you are super dedicated, I guess you could say. And then the last one is the PvP category. Of all of those categories, they have probably, off the top of my head, I would say about 6 to 9 possible activities. But right now, during this special event where you can get the special drops, only one of each activity in each category has the special drops. So not only are you doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, like me, I'm a soloer, so I'm pretty much doing, 99% of my time solo. Now I am not only forced to pick from one of the 6 solo activities I prefer, but I am forced to pick one specific one over and over and over and over and over, because it's the only one that has the special event type drops. At this point, I will probably say that I will keep continuing and playing until I get a tier 3 set complete, back to the set that I want with the stats that I want. But I honestly don't know if I will try for anything higher, because the drop rates of tier 4 stuff are just so low right now. In theory, I could maybe see some more soon, so maybe I will keep playing and try for a tier 4 set, but we are looking at quite a long time. I think, off the top of my head, I'm tempted to say this content dropped 2.5 weeks ago, so, 2.5 weeks, say times 4 per day, just 75 hours, it sounds like. I'm not super great at math, but that is a lot of time, especially, again, if you compare that to a solo player who's only going to play, 5 or 10 hours a week. My God, that's probably like months for them. So, I don't know. I don't think this is going to hold a lot of interest for the community unless they do something like greatly increase the number of drops or greatly reduce the amount of experience it takes to level up, because most people are just taking a very long time to get up in levels. And as I mentioned, since tier 5, is the highest tier you can get, there is this general perception that if you don't have tier 5, you may as well not fixate on, finding the ideal thing, because as soon as you get a higher tier of the thing, it doesn't really matter how perfect the thing is. A higher tier is just, perceived as something that's going to replace it, even if it is, almost as good. I don't know if that perception will change. There is, like I said, a huge difference in terms of the stat points you get with a tier 5 versus a tier 1. So, by then you would definitely want to do it. Will people be satisfied with tier 2 and tier 3 if they're just like, I don't really care, number goes up, with higher stuff, I don't care, I'm not going to grind for that? We'll see. Supposedly there are 1/3 the number of players on, the visible numbers like Steam as there have ever been before with an expansion. So that is not good. Numbers are very low in terms of player count and interest, and we will see if Bungie does anything to help us out and change the situation. Like I said, I think it's a solid base, but just a flawed execution. First off, they need way more sets. Elder Scrolls Online has supposedly something like hundreds of sets. Destiny 2, off the top of my head again, has something like 6. And of them, I only kind of care about 1. So it's not going to hold my interest to be like, oh, I need to get this set, and then that'll allow me to grind up this other set. No, it's like I have access to it already in the most basic of activities, so I just need to, grind up the levels to start seeing, the higher pieces drop, and then I'll be fine. Is that going to keep my interest? I don't know. Like I said, we'll see, because I pretty much play, just to get my stuff up and, have it ready just in case. But what's the point of that if it's going to take so long that it's, just not worth it? So we'll see. I certainly would not recommend people probably pay for it this time. Just go for free. I don't know how much you'll be missing out on as a free player. I think it isn't as much as in previous years/expansions. I think free players have access to much more stuff this time. But, definitely if you are a returning player or considering picking up for the first time, I would say, definitely come in as a free player. See, how you feel about the grind, because I don't know. I don't recommend it, and a lot of people are really unhappy with it. And we'll see if Bungie fixes anything to make it better. But that's it for this time. So I don't know what I'll talk about next time. I don't think there's any big releases coming up anytime soon. I think Borderlands 4 is the first thing I'm looking for, and I think that's in like mid or late September. I'm not totally sure, but it's not anytime soon. Certainly not by the next podcast in 3 weeks. I think the only thing happening between now and then would be my birthday, and I don't know. I might pick up something on sale for that. Maybe I'll talk about it, maybe I won't. Maybe I won't get anything, and I'll just, keep playing what I'm playing. I still have a few games I've gotten on sale that I haven't played yet, so I have a few things to work through still. But I guess that's it for this time. And like I said, I don't know for sure what I'll talk about next time, but hopefully I'll see everybody then. Okay, thanks, bye.
You have been listening to Rabbit's Ramblings. If you would like to see the show notes or feed the bunny by sending a donation, You can find the show website at www.rabb1t's/podcast/rabbitsramblings.html. When you type Rabbit's Ramblings, don't use a space. If you would like to send me an email, you can do so at rabbit@rabbit.com. If you like my page, you can also post on Facebook at rabbit.com. You can follow me on YouTube at rabb1t's. I have a page on Patreon at www.patreon.com/rabbit, RABB1T. You can set up a monthly recurring subscription there at a price point of your choice. Be sure to put the number 1 in place of I anytime you type rabbit. Rabbit's Ramblings is copyright Eric Stryker, using a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Derivatives License 2025.